Hi, everyone. I was told it was communicated that I may have gone a little too fast yesterday with my going over these, and it's just because there's a lot to cover. So I'm going to go a little slower here and do a few Regents questions with you, basically following from the last part of the packet that we just stopped at. And then we're going to move on to the next skill, which is related to parabolas. So let's do a few practice questions together. If you did these on your own yesterday, let's see how you did, okay? Read this question number one. A parabola has the focus 1, 2, and a directrix y equals -2. Write the equation. Okay, so again, step one is going to be the sketch. So let's do a quick sketch of 1, 2, put a dot, label it F for focus, and directrix is y equals -2. So you have to know what kind of line this is. So if you go to the y-axis and go to -2, you want to pass through -2. Okay, so is that a horizontal or a vertical line? And it's specifically, it's a horizontal line because it passes through the y-axis at -2. So now what I would do is I would count um, how many total units there are between the focus and the directrix. Okay, because remember it's FVD or DVF, where the vertex is in the middle. So if you count from -2 to 2, there's a total of 4 units. So the midpoint of that is going to be 2 units up or 2 units down because it's half of 4. So if you go 2 units up from the directrix or 2 units down from the focus, you're going to land here. And that's going to be the vertex. And that's actually going to be the coordinates 1, 0. Okay. So the value of P is actually half of this 4, which is 2. And that's because you go 2 units up or 2 units down from the vertex to the focus or from the vertex to the directrix. So now let's actually do the question. So I'm sorry, the next thing we have to do is visualize if it's going to open up, down, right, or left. So remember, you always want to draw your parabola from your vertex, which is like your turning point, and you want to always look toward your focus. So open it so the focus is inside the parabola and open up toward your focus, and the directrix is always behind the vertex outside of the parabola. So because it opens up, we know that it's going to be positive x squared. So keep that in mind. But if you look at the choices, they're all positive x squared. So that really doesn't really help us. So the next thing that we do is we're going to write our equation in y equals form. And we write 1 over 4p x minus h squared plus k. Okay. So if you think about the transformation that has occurred from the origin 0, it has moved over to the right 1. So I would write that down, right 1. Okay, so think about how you would represent that in the form of this parentheses. It would be x minus 1 squared, but then you wouldn't have to do anything with the k because the y coordinate of the vertex is 0. So it just moved to the right one, but basically nothing happened going up and down. So I'm going to put a plus 0 just to show you it's 1, 0, but you don't really need the 0. Now the 1 over 4p is going to be 1 over 4 times 2. Okay. So if you clean that up, it's going to be y equals 1/8. So you know that you could get rid of 1 and 3. And then x minus 1 squared plus 0. So the answer was choice 4. So again, I recommend that you go to the choices, put it in y equals, and then see if it, when you graph it, if it looks like this picture that you drew. Okay, now let's skip. We'll skip past 2 and 3 because those look a little simpler. Let's skip to number 4. So number 4 is in a different form, so it does look like a little scarier. So let's check it out. It says the focus is -2, 5. So let's go to -2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and put in F for focus, F. Directrix is at y equals 9, so it was bad because I didn't really have a lot of room up here. But 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at 9, we're going to put a horizontal line. Okay, so our directrix is way up top. So remember, it's always the vertex in the middle of the directrix and the focus. So if the directrix is here and the focus is here, that means the vertex has to be here, halfway in between. So I'm hoping that you're visualizing this and saying that this parabola is going to open down because the directrix is going to be above the parabola and the focus is going to be inside the parabola. okay? So if the focus is -2, 5, and the directrix is 9, the distance, the vertical distance from 5 to 9, this whole distance is 4. So half of 4 is going to be the P, which is 2, okay? So P is 2, P is 2. So I'll write that down, P equals 2, okay? Now the coordinates of the vertex, it's going to still be -2, but the x coordinate stays the same. But the y coordinate is going to be 2 units up from 5. So 2 units up from 5 is 7, and 2 units down from 9 is 7. So if you said the vertex is -2, 7, good job. Okay, now is x squared or y squared? So x is squared, but it's going down, so it's going to be -x squared because it's opening downward. So look here, look at choice 1. You see how it says y squared? These are out because y is squared. And do you see how the only one with a negative is actually choice 4? So it has to be choice 4, okay? And now let's talk about y. If I had written it in the form y equals 1 over 4p, and it's going to be negative because it's going down, p is 2, x minus h squared, so x minus -2 is going to be x plus 2 squared plus 7. Then I'm going to get y equals -1/8 x plus 2 squared plus 7. Now let's say this is vertex form. I wanted to manipulate that into this form, okay? What would I do? The first thing I would do is I would multiply, actually no, the first thing I would do would be to subtract 7 to get the 7 to the other side of y. So I would -7, and I'm going to get y minus 7. And I'm running out of space, so I'm just going to put it down here. Pretend like we didn't do this question. We get y minus 7 equals -1/8 x plus 2 squared, okay? And now the 7 went away because I moved it over. And then let's say I wanted to get, see, basically this is x plus 2 squared by itself on the left-hand side. I would want to get rid of this -1/8. See it? See the -1/8? So to do that, I would multiply by the reciprocal of -1/8, which is -8 over 1. So now the -1/8 and the 1/8 cancel, and I end up getting x plus 2 by itself squared equals -8 y minus 7. And that is choice 4. So I know that it looks scarier because it's kind of in a different form of the vertex form, but you can manipulate what you solve for to equal that, or you can manipulate the choice to make it into that form, basically. But again, using common sense, the only one that it could have been was choice 4. Okay, so I'm actually going to skip some of these practice questions. You can do the rest in your own time, but I want to move on to the next skill. So the next skill is actually going to be the opposite of the other one, and I think it's going to be easier for you because now you already know how to write the equation of the parabola. So you should be able to identify parts if you're given the equation and you have to determine the parts, okay? So it's basically the reverse of what we just did. So once your equation is in y equals form, which is that standard form, or I should say vertex form, then you're going to determine your vertex. Remember, it's the opposite sign of what's in the parentheses, and then you keep the sign that's not in the parentheses. Then you look at the direction of the parabola and you determine if it's positive or negative leading coefficient. If it's positive, then it would be opening up or down. I mean, up if it's x squared, or right if it's y squared. Always draw a picture. I want to star this one because some of you are going to try to do this in your head. And honestly, a lot of kids get it wrong when they do it in their head. And then eventually you want to find P, okay? All right, let's do some questions. So here was a Regents question. There's definitely at least one Regents question on parabolas on every Regents. But sometimes it's in the other format where you have to write the equation. And sometimes it's in the format like this where they give the equation and you have to find a piece or a part from it, okay? So here's my equation, and it tells us the focus, and it says determine and state the equation of the directrix, and it says the use of the grid is optional. So like sometimes I don't even use the grid because I feel like the grid kind of constrains me, and it might be easier to just draw a sketch, but it's up to you. I guess I'll do the grid for this time. It's just, I feel like I have to be so exact with the grid, but this is why we use pencil when we're doing our Regents for graphs. All right, so let's look at our vertex. Remember, the vertex is going to be the opposite sign of what's in the parentheses. So it's going to be positive 3, and then keep the sign of the 6. So remember, it would be right 3, up 6. Right 3, up 6. If we were doing transformations. Okay? Right 3, up 6. Vertex. Now, the focus is 3, 1. So I would put a V for vertex, and then I would plot 3, 1. So 3, 1 is down here. Put F for focus. And then even if I did not have this equation here, I would ask myself, where's the directrix going to be? So remember, it's always dVF or FVD, where the vertex is in the middle. So if the focus is over here, this thing is going to be opening down, and that actually means the direction is going to be up top. So you can find now the coordinates, you can find the value of P by just counting how many units from the vertex to the focus. So if the vertex is 1, 6, and the focus is, 3, 6, and the focus is 3, 1, the difference between 1 and 6 is 5. So this means that P equals 5. Write that down. So to get your directrix, you just have to go 5 units the other way from your vertex. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the directrix here is going to be here, D for directrix. So what is its equation? Well, does it pass through the y-axis or the x-axis? I'm hoping you're saying the y-axis. So the equation, remember, is either y equals or x equals, right? So in this case, it's y equals. And then if you were to go 5 units up from 6, you would get to 11. So 6 plus 5 equals 11. So this is y equals 11. That is my directrix. Now, the other thing you could have done would have been, you could have looked at the 1 over 4p. If we have negative 1 over 20, and this is 1 over 4p, the 20 is the 4p. So if 20 equals 4p, what does p equal? I'm hoping you're saying 5. So the negative just refers to the direction that it's going down. The negative does not refer to like a distance, but the p equals 5, and that is important because then you can just count 5 units up or down from the vertex that you already identified. Okay, which we counted it out like physically, manually, but you didn't have to because of this equation. All right, so that's that. Next one. This one was worth 2 points on the regents. So now you see this one is in a different form. So again, if you look first, I would notice if x is squared or y is squared, x is squared. So you do want it to be in y equals form if x is squared. So I would move over everything to get y by itself. You see y is over here. So the first thing I would do would be divide by 16 because it's connected by multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I would get y plus 1 equals, and this is really over 16, but I'm going to write 1 over 16 because remember it's going to become 1 over 4p. So the 16 moved to that side and now it's 1 over 16. Okay. Now I'm going to take away 1, subtract 1, and now y will be by itself. Okay. So now I have my equation 1 over 16, x minus 3 squared minus 1. Okay. They didn't ask for that though, so just keep that in mind. So now the first thing we want to do is plot the vertex and the directrix and then see if we can find the focus because we want the focus. So the vertex is positive 3, negative 1 because we're going right 3, down 1. So put V for vertex. And the directrix is y equals negative 5. 1, 2, 3, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. So that's going to be this line here. Okay, so remember the focus is going to be on the other side of the parabola because it's always dVF or FVD. So count how many units is going to be P from negative 1 to negative 5. That's going to be 4 units. if you want, count it 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go the other way to get your focus. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you could do -1 plus 4, which is 3, right? Okay, so it's F. And this thing is going to go open upward, okay, because it's positive. Remember, the focus is always inside the parabola. Now, the other thing you could have done is you could have looked at the 16, and remember that's 4p. So if 4p equals 16, divide by 4, that means that p equals 4, right? So I told you p equals 4 over here because I actually counted it out, but you could have just done it that way. So anyway, what is our final answer? The coordinates of the focus. So remember, coordinates mean an order pair x comma y. So what are the coordinates of this point? It's going to have the same x value as the vertex, which is 3. So it's going to be 3, comma, and then 3. Okay, so 3, comma 3. Remember, coordinates are in parentheses because they're a point. Don't put them in brackets or anything else, just parentheses. Okay, don't leave them hanging with nothing attached. Now this next one kind of threw us for a curveball because now this is actually in standard form, and you could actually just graph it in y equals and take a look. But because it's in standard form, the one thing that we want to mention is you want to look for what's squared. X is squared, and you also want to look for the coefficient. The coefficient is positive, leading coefficient. So positive x squared means that it's going to open upward. But now you don't really need that equation too much because they gave you two things that are important, the vertex and the focus. So if you have the vertex and the focus, you can find the directrix just by plotting them, okay? So the vertex is -2, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Plotted V. And the focus is -2, 8. Plotted F. So which way is this going to open? And again, I think kids have trouble with this. They don't know how to draw it. Just keep telling yourself that the vertex is the turning point. So like plot your point here at the turning point, and then tell yourself that it's always going to open up toward the focus. So the focus is going to be inside the parabola, and the direction is going to be behind the parabola. So what is the value of p, the distance from 7 to 8? I'm hoping you're saying 1. So if you go the other way, down 1, what's going to be the directrix? 7 minus 1 is 6, right? But it's actually going to be y equals 6 because equation, you need x equals or y equals. So if x is squared, which most of the time it is, it's going to be a y equals directrix. And if y was squared, it's going to be an x equals directrix because of the way that the parabola falls. This 1 over 4 is actually the 1 over 4p in this case is 4 times 1. But you didn't even need that because you have the picture that you just. Okay, let's do one more together. So to do this one, you see again, it's not in y equals form. X is squared. Okay, so you want to put it in y equals form. So the first thing I would do would be divide by 12. So you're going to get 1/12. X minus 3 squared equals y plus 1. And then subtract 1, get y by itself. So we get 1/12, x minus 3 squared minus 1. That's vertex form. The vertex is going to be 3, -1. Because it's going to go right 3, down 1. So they asked for the vertex, focus, and directrix. So I'm going to graph this now. See it all. 3, -1. Plot the vertex. V. The 4p is going to be 12 because this is 1 over 4p. So if 4p equals 12, divide by 4, p equals 3. So I'm going to go up 3 and down 3 because I know x is squared, okay? So I'm going to go up 3 from -1, -1 plus 3, and -1 minus 3. -1 plus 3 is 2. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. I'm going to hit 2. And then I'm going to go down 3. -1 minus 3 is -4. 1, 2, 3, -4. So because x is squared, and it's positive x squared, because there's positive 1/12, it's going to open up. So I'm going to draw from the vertex going upward, and thus the directrix is going to be at -4. So it's going to be y equals -4. So the equation for the directrix is y equals -4. The coordinates of the vertex is 3, 2. No, sorry, the focus is 3, 2, and the vertex is, we already said 3, -1. So we have 3, -1 for the vertex. Focus is 3, 2. So one thing I want to mention, I don't want to confuse you guys, but if you just look at it from the beginning, because these are both in parentheses, if you change the sign of both of these, you'll get the vertex. So -3, the vertex is 3, and at y plus 1, the vertex is -1. So when it's in parentheses, you just change the sign of both of the coordinates to get the vertex. But if one's in parentheses and one's not, you change the sign of this one and you keep the sign of that one. Okay, so now you guys are going to do some practice problems yourself. So if you look, Regents questions, try them.